Whether you love them or hate them, one thing's for sure, you hear about this person all the time.
President Trump.
President Trump.
President Trump. President Trump.
President Trump.
President Trump.
Of course, I'm talking about the President of the United States. But wait a second. This video is about what it means to be president. It's not about President Trump himself, but about the office itself. Because let's be honest, the internet already has enough videos about him.
All right, Trump's hair tastes like bananas.
So what does this job entail? What does the president actually do? I'm gonna break it down. But in the meantime, one thing's for sure. You can walk up to whoever currently holds this position and say, Mr. or Madam President, for me, you work.
I, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
Only 44 people have taken that oath since the United States was founded. Why do they all do this? Because that very document they swear to uphold says they have to. In fact, I was surprised to find out the Constitution lays out a pretty straightforward presidential job description. But over the last almost 2.5 centuries, the list of responsibilities has grown.
Everybody ready to sing happy birthday?
We'll go over all that in a bit, but first, let's start with the constitutional job requirements. It's crazy because most of these requirements are actually illegal for private companies to demand of applicants. Nevertheless, if you were to come across a listing for President of the United States posted online, here are the requirements you'd see. First, you have to have been born on US soil and lived here for the past 14 years, which sadly means Drake, Ryan Gosling, and Celine Dion. Yeah, they're all out.
Boo-hoo!
You've got to be at least 35 years old. So in about 10 to 15 years, Kylie Jenner can officially run for president and start her inevitable world takeover. You can't have already been elected president 2 different times, so this guy, and this guy are out, but there's still hope for this guy and this guy. You can't simultaneously be a member of Congress, which is good because that's just way too much responsibility for one person, am I right? And last, but certainly not least, the most difficult requirement of them all, the one that costs billions of dollars, demands that you interact with thousands of people, whether you like them or not. Gosh, that sounds horrible. And it also probably requires a really good therapist. You've got to garner at least 270 electoral college votes. Talk about a grueling interview process. So now that the American people have said, you're hired, at least for the next 4, possibly 8 years, here's what you've got on your plate starting on day 1. The president's duties are split into 2 categories. You've got your constitutional duties, which are laid out in black and white in the Constitution, and your implied or added duties that are required because they're tradition or because over the years citizens have come to expect you to fulfill them. We'll start with the black and white. According to Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, you're now the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. As leader of the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Coast Guard, you've got the final say on where troops are stationed all over the world. All the nation's ships and aircraft carriers are at your disposal as well. And you are now the only person in the country with the power to authorize the use of one of these: an atomic bomb.
When you're in Texas, look behind you, 'cause that's where the Rangers gonna be.
You may think Chuck Norris is the nation's top law enforcer, but that duty actually belongs to the president. Look at it this way. As head of the executive branch, you're essentially the CEO of an international company with more than 2 million employees. That's how many people work for the 15 different divisions of the executive branch. The departments of agriculture, commerce, defense, education, energy, health and human services, homeland security, housing and urban development, the interior, justice, labor, state, transportation, transportation, treasury, and Veterans Affairs. You've now got to pick a leader for each one. And you better choose wisely for a couple of different reasons. 1, the Senate has to approve your nominee, and 2, if they screw up, you're likely to get blamed. So even if your best friend's girlfriend needs a job really bad, if she's not highly qualified, you should probably pick someone else. The heads of all those departments make up your cabinet. If there's an opening on the Supreme Court, it's your job to pick someone new to fill the seat. You've got to choose up to 80 ambassadors to represent the U.S. abroad. Also, if for some reason your vice president can't fulfill his or her duties anymore, you've got to nominate someone else to take their place. Now, even with all those jobs you've already filled, there's still a whole lot more that need filling. More than 10,000 positions are appointed personally by a new president. So now that you've got your staffing issues out of the way, Congress is going to start sending you some bills that require your signature. These bills are new laws or changes to current laws they voted on and passed. If you think it's a good idea, you go ahead and sign it, and they become the new law of the land. But if you don't think it's that great, then you gotta send it back to Congress with an explanation. You point out what you think are flaws, and in a perfect world where everyone gets along, lawmakers will work on crafting a new version that you will sign.
The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
But the thing is, we don't live in a perfect world. And because Congress is made up of so many people with wide-ranging opinions, it's pretty difficult for them to agree. That inability to compromise leads to a lot of gridlock over on Capitol Hill. If the legislative branch fails to act, there is a tool the president has that can bypass the lawmaking procedure. These are known as presidential proclamations and executive orders. You've probably heard of the Emancipation Proclamation President Abraham Lincoln signed. In it, he declared that all persons held as slaves are, and henceforward, shall be free. But if you do decide to go this route, you better make sure your order is constitutional, because Congress has the ability to change it. The order can also be challenged in court and struck down by a judge.
Judgment for the plaintiff, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
My fellow Americans, the state of our union is the strongest it has ever been.
Another key responsibility of the president that's laid out in the Constitution is to update Congress on the State of the Union. This is basically a yearly progress report you give to a joint session of Congress.
I speak today in an hour of national peril and national opportunity.
Presidents usually use this time to pat themselves on the back for the things they've accomplished and outline their focus and goals for the next year.
I am proud of America, and I'm proud to be an American.
The last black and white constitutional duty of the president is to approve treaties. These are agreements between the United States and other countries. Now imagine the US with a giant French hole in the middle of it.
Bon appétit.
Julia Child may have liked it, but the current residents of Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska may not. That's because they'd all be citizens of France right now if it wasn't because of one of the most famous treaties in U.S. history. I'm talking about the Louisiana Purchase Treaty, signed by President Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States. That treaty authorized the U.S. to buy this 800,000 square mile plot of land from France. That happened more than 200 years ago. And over the course of those 200 years, the job description of President of the United States has grown quite a bit. We've covered the constitutional duties of the president. Now it's time to explore some of the other aspects of the job, ones that we've come to expect the president to perform. So in addition to all the stuff we've already talked about, starting on day one, you now represent more than 325 million people. That's the amount of people who call the United States home. You represent us to the rest of the world. This is done by traveling abroad and promoting American values.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
You'll also be called on to host heads of state or the leaders of other countries at the White House. An arrival ceremony is usually held with a lot of pomp and circumstance. And since 1902, the White House has been equipped with its own state dining room for hosting black tie events to celebrate the diplomatic ties between two countries. Most state dinners feature an extravagant 5-course meal and a toast by the president.
God bless France, God bless our alliance, and God bless America.
The very first state dinner was hosted by President Ulysses S. Grant in 1874. He welcomed King David Kalakaua from what was then known as the Kingdom of Hawaii.
This is an ABC News special report.
Good Morning America was in progress in the East Coast and the Midwest, but we're joined by the entire network just to show you some pictures at the foot of New York City. This is at the World Trade Center.
In the wake of a disaster of any kind, man-made or natural, all eyes are on the president.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
That looks like a second plane. So this looks like it is some sort of a concerted effort to attack the World Trade Center that is underway.
You are the face of the nation, especially when tragedy strikes.
Freedom itself was attacked this morning by a faceless coward. And freedom will be defended.
We live in a constant breaking news environment these days, where people can communicate instantly.
This is going to really impact northern Florida.
This is why the duty of Consoler-in-Chief has been added to the list of presidential responsibilities.
The great thing about America is when we go through tough times like this, we all pull together.
Karen Hughes was a top advisor to President George W. Bush. In an interview with the Washington Post, she said, "The president goes to a site like Ground Zero, both to say the American people are here with you, and also to say to the people there that the resources of the nation are behind you." She goes on to say that this is something Americans have come to expect of their president. Now on to something that the president really doesn't have much direct control over, but they still get blamed or praised for. I'm talking about the economy. Ever since 2008, at the peak of the last recession, the idea that the president controls the economy has grown strong among U.S. citizens.
The American financial system is rocked to its foundation as top Wall Street institutions topple under a mountain of debt.
Since there really is no straightforward way for you to do this, you've got to be indirect in your approach. First, pay close attention to those unemployment numbers that the Bureau of Labor Statistics puts out each month.
134,000 jobs added to the U.S. economy in September.
Meet with your economic advisors to come up with ideas on how to improve or keep the country's financial status strong.
So the plan we put together would support millions of jobs.
Then you've got to rally members of Congress to produce legislation or new laws that you think will strengthen the economy.
It's the largest tax cut in the history of our country. We are making America great again. You haven't heard that, have you?
Chances are, if you got enough votes to become president, you're either a Democrat or a Republican. And congratulations! By winning the election, you're now the leader of the political party that backed you. As if you didn't have enough to do already. This means you've got to hit the campaign trail for other members of your party who are running for positions of power.
Don't boo! Vote! No, booing doesn't do any good.
Oh, and fundraising. You'll be doing a lot of that. Time to raise some cash because running a campaign is expensive. According to OpenSecrets.com, the 2016 presidential campaign cost a whopping $6.5 billion. And, believe it or not, that's actually a decrease from the amount spent in 2012. So there you have it. That's the nutshell version of what's required of the President of the United States. No doubt, it's a tough job. Probably a whole lot more than one person can handle. The good news is that the executive office of the president, that's the group of people who work directly with you. It has more than 4,000 employees. That's 4,000 people who help you execute all of your duties. I'll tell you more about some of the tasks those positions require in upcoming videos. Some I surely didn't know existed. Not to mention, there's a long list of perks that come with being president. From room and board to Air Force One. I'm gonna go over all that in a separate video because otherwise this one would have been like 2 hours long. Thanks so much for watching my first full video. I'm so excited to finally get this off the ground. I hope that you'll be able to get a sense of where I'm going as I start to upload more videos. But back to this one. Is there something I forgot or left out? Tell me about it in the comments section. Please, please, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Every week, we'll go over the job description of someone you can walk up to and say, "For me, you work."